Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. I'm Hope Cahan, your host for today, and with me is Breene Kerr, the mayor of Los Altos Hills. Thank you for joining us today, Breene.
Glad to be here.
So, Breene, tell us a little bit about where you're from and where you went to school.
Well, I'm currently have lived in Los Altos Hills for 10 years and am the mayor there. I'm in my second term. Originally grew up in Oklahoma and Washington, D.C., and then moved out here about 30 years ago.
How did you end up going from Oklahoma to Washington and then out to California?
Well, Washington was a sort of an interesting side trip. My dad got a little bit involved in politics. He worked in an executive position at NASA, and so we moved there for some time. And a lovely city, enjoyed it. And right nearby Chesapeake Bay, which is always a great place to hang out, and very similar to our own San Francisco Bay.
Oh, so do you sail as well?
Yes. So that's a great place to sail, and as is the San Francisco Bay. And of course, sailing is actually powered by solar energy. Oh,
well, you are very interested in solar energy. You've been doing a lot of work there. How did you transition into that interest?
Well, I don't like to admit that I'm an engineer because I don't have a pocket protector with me, but I am a mechanical engineer, and so have had an interest in solar ever since my college days. In the last about last 10 years, it's become more of a practical solution to people's energy problems, and it's really now an important component of our energy solution, both in California and in the United States.
So you have a background in engineering, an interest in solar. You've also done production, including media, digital media, and 3D animation. And how did all of that lead you to then run for Los Altos Hills Town Council?
That's an interesting question. Politics is really about the marketing of ideas, and so it's not that big of a jump from tech marketing to politics. However, you need to be motivated. You need to have a reason why you get into politics. Right. And in my case, I got kind of involved in a lot of local issues where it was sort of environmental versus development, and I felt that there's a way to have intelligent development that also maintains the character of in my case, Los Altos Hills, or also the character of the community, the Silicon Valley community that we live in. So, I'm fortunate I wasn't around when they plowed under all the apricot orchards. I would have liked to have had a little influence on that, but in our particular community, we've been able to maintain kind of a rural atmosphere and a lot of the trappings, if you will, of rural life, but still accommodate development. And of course, we're very close to Silicon Valley, and most of our residents, work in the tech companies here in the valley.
And so, what projects have you been working on while you've been on the town council?
Well, primarily, I've done a lot of building and sort of improving our public infrastructure. So during the last 8 years, I have been intimately involved in rebuilding our municipal infrastructure, basically our town hall, our government center, which is now 60% solar powered.
I've been over there, and you have solar panels everywhere.
You're right. Well, we ran out of room on the roof, and so in a commercial building, you don't really have enough room on the roof. So we have a solar orchard out back, and various different technologies that we try to experiment with. And then what happens is we try things first, and then if things work out in the public facilities, then we promote them to our residents. So as a result, in our community, we're the top, number 5 in solar installs per 1,000 residents in the state of California. So we have about a 10% market penetration, i.e. and 1 out of 10 homes in our community is solar powered in one way or another.
That's great. And you started I like having the model that you try it out first at the government buildings, public buildings, and then what you've learned you transfer on to the residents there.
Yeah, people don't like, we like to make sure that we're not asking the residents to do things that we wouldn't, that the government hasn't tried already and found to be acceptable. So in other words, do as I say, not do as I do, not as I say. You know, so it's like, and that way we find out what the bugs are, and like people come to town hall to get a solar permit, we can say, well, here, you know, if you look around here, you'll see the different examples of different kinds of solar. Right now, we're just opening up another building that's been retrofitted and sort of restored, which is our community barn, and there we've got an extensive solar thermal system in addition to the solar electric. So solar thermal is something that we think residences throughout California are going to be actively installing again. There's $350 million worth of rebates that are coming starting this summer. And so
why did you focus on the solar thermal? Well,
that facility turned out a lot of its energy use was for hot water because it's an equestrian facility, and there's just you know, a large component, and we also use the solar thermal to do some heating of the building. But the other thing is that we saw this rebate program coming from the California Solar Initiative, and you know, now our inspectors are very familiar with solar thermal. It's different than the electric panels that we've been seeing over the last 5 years everywhere.
And what does the solar thermal do that's different?
Well, it's a direct use of the sun's energy to heat heat transfer fluids. Sometimes it's water. Sometimes you use you know, sort of an antifreeze solution. But ultimately, it ends up you know, heating your domestic hot water, and depending upon how you've got your heating system set up, you can also heat a home with it, like you know, with the radiant slab heating and that kind of stuff. So
what is a radiant slab heating? What does that mean?
That just means that if you have a concrete floor, or even you can do it on wood floors, that you have a heat source that's warming the floor. So this is typically in the United States being considered kind of a luxury thing, like you'll see it in luxury homes. It's actually a more efficient way of doing it, and in other countries it's very commonly used in all kinds of buildings, and I think it'll be you know, something that we'll see a lot more of here. It has a number of environmental benefits for environmental air quality, indoor air quality. You're not sort of stirring up the dust, you're just simply warming the room.
So tell me a little bit more about the barn and the significance of the work that you've been doing there.
Okay, well, that the West Wind Barn is something we're just reopened.
And this is a public barn for all of your residents to use.
It's for anybody, really. Okay. It's open to the public. You know, sort of sunrise to sunset. There are about 70 horses out there. People board their horses from all over the peninsula, although about half of them are our residents. And the reason they like it there is because it's adjacent to a 55-acre open space that the town also owns, and then it has access to places like Hidden Villa or Rancho San Antonio. Or so there's lots of neat trails, so people you know, like it for that. It's also a historic structure. It was donated to the town in 1975 by Countess Margit Bessigné, who was wife of the Hungarian ambassador to the United States. And she was a great, very colorful woman, horsewoman, had a big stud farm in Montana. And anyway, the barn was donated to the town, and over the years it's been maintained by a volunteer organization. But frankly, it had gotten a little run down, and we realized that we needed to do a seismic retrofit in order to make it, because of our liability in the case of an earthquake. So it sort of started out as a seismic retrofit project, and then became a lead registered project, which sort of layered a lot of sustainability on top of it. At this point, it's really become a showcase for sustainable technologies, and is expected to achieve net zero energy use, which is really the next frontier for buildings. Well, that means that you're producing as much energy as you're drawing from the grid. So there may be some back and forth to the electric grid, but on a net basis, you're at zero. Buildings in the United States consume about 70% of the total electricity that's generated. And they're the most significant consumer of energy, and even larger than the transportation sector.
That's really high.
So if we can get, if we can create the new gold standard for buildings is net zero. And so the West Wind Barn that's the goal there. It's also going to be the first LEED certified working barn in America. So,
wow,
so for those that want to hear more about and want to see more about it, there's a website called www.leedbarn.com, L-E-E-D barn.com, and you can find out more about it there. Sort of getting back to the energy mix in the United States, we've made lots of efforts as a municipality to encourage green building, energy efficient building. The state has a huge role to play there, and has got the California Solar Initiative and the new revised energy codes. The issue is, however, that new buildings only represent a very small part of of what's going on in the housing and the commercial building sector.
If we just focused on new buildings, what would that end up being for us?
Well, if you take a typical city, you're replacing about 1% of the housing stock every year, if you're lucky. Right. So that means it would take over 100 years to actually update, your buildings. That's not going to be fast enough to deal with some of the issues that we're concerned about, the global warming issues, or the, reducing our dependence on imported energy sources. So, or just the ultimate exhaustion of carbon energy sources, which will come eventually as well. So we want to make progress. We want to do it in a reasonable time frame. We're going to have to go after existing buildings, existing housing stock. So that's the next challenge, really, to the whole energy field.
So how have you been turning your work with the barn into helping in the other areas that we need of other public buildings, commercial buildings, residential buildings?
Well, there's lots of opportunities in public office to influence policy. For example, when I was on the board of the Valley Transit Authority, we initiated a $2 million energy efficiency project. I think a lot of the things that we've done in Los Altos Hills with our, zero permit fees for solar, or encouraging of the installation of other energy efficiency devices, have been provided leadership to other communities. So I think, everything that you do in the public sector in a leadership role, you're sort of pointing the way perhaps to other municipalities. And then the Bay Area itself is really it has taken the lead in the whole country, along with a couple of other cities like Austin, Texas, and as one that comes to mind. When people want to know what to do about these issues, they come and look at what's going on in the Bay Area.
Great.
So, particularly the whole green building movement started here, and there are more Greenpoint Raiders in the Bay Area probably than the whole rest of the state combined.
Wow.
LEED buildings. I mean, you just don't see any new commercial buildings or public buildings that aren't LEED certified. Now, agricultural buildings is a little bit of a new topic. We'll see if we can get the farmers to buy into this concept. But if you go outside the Bay Area or outside California, there's still work to be done there. And so I think that we can provide a real leadership role for the rest of the country as well.
Great.
And is AB 32, for example, is an example of that kind of leadership, and I hope that we'll stay the course on that one. That's the groundbreaking California law that addresses on a sort of a long-term basis, a 10-year kind of basis, how do you begin to reduce your carbon footprint as a society, and that is something which unfortunately the U.S. Congress hasn't taken up yet. But
we're gonna come right back. We're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna hear some more about the great environmental work that's being done in the state. Thank you.
Hi, I'm California State Senator Joe Simitian, and we live in very exciting times. This is an opportunity for all of us to step up, face the challenge, not only for America, but for California and for Santa Clara County as well. One place we can do that is through our California Democratic Party at the state and local level. It's an opportunity to make sure that the views and values we hold dear are expressed in the decisions that get made at every level of government. It's also, frankly, a great opportunity to spend time with like-minded folks who share our commitment to doing good works in the community and beyond. So take this opportunity to get in touch with your local Democratic Party, 408-445-9500, and we can make a difference together for California. Thanks so much.
Hope Cahan. We're here with the Mayor of Los Altos Hills, Breene Kerr, and we're discussing AB 32. You were telling me about the significance of that.
Well, AB 32 is one of the most significant pieces of environmental legislation that's been passed in really in the world. And I mean, that would not be too great a thing to say about it. It's something which was a bipartisan initiative passed, with Arnold Schwarzenegger's enthusiastic support.
And can you tell us briefly what the significance of it is?
The significance is AB 32 is a long-term roadmap for how you reduce the state's carbon footprint. So it was enacted into law actually several years ago now with a timetable, and so over the last 3 years, the entire state of California has been mobilized to meet these objectives, which essentially include reducing our emission levels, our CO2 emission levels to 1990 levels. I believe that's by 2020.
That's significant.
And then once you hit that, then you start talking about how do we go down from there. And ultimately you get to a point where you're no longer affecting the Earth's environment adversely. So the whole project is a huge project. The law, and in fact, one of the first things that was a result of it was the California Fuel Economy Standards, which were the subject of court cases between the EPA and California, and ultimately led to the nationwide adoption of the California standards. So it's already had a huge impact, positive impact. What's been going on in the state is over the last several years, all communities have been doing what's called a greenhouse gas inventory. So by 2012, they're required to know how much sort of CO2 is being emitted in their community and have a number around that can then be basically people say what can be measured can be improved. So there's this huge system of measuring greenhouse gas emissions, and then once you've done that, then you move on to what's called a carbon action plan, which municipalities and public agencies begin to adopt, and then you implement those plans. So what's being talked about, unfortunately, now in the gubernatorial race is it's become kind of a political issue, and people are talking about potentially hitting the pause button on this whole thing.
Which people are talking about that?
Well, generally, the candidates on the Republican side for the gubernatorial candidates, the Meg Whitmans, the Steve Poizners, those type of folks, and so it's become kind of I think a false choice between jobs and the environment. I mean, we've seen this kind of debate before. When we first started talking about cleaning up smog and doing something about polluting our polluted rivers, there was all these talk that was going to hurt jobs, and what turned out that for every job that's lost by somebody who's driving an oil tanker over here from Saudi Arabia, there's a job gained by an engineer that's trying to figure out how to make a car burn fuel cleanly or to get better miles per gallon.
The whole labor movement is turning towards a green jobs movement. Van Jones started that, and Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins is now running that.
Absolutely, and you know, if you take the this project we just finished in the hills, there were a lot of people when we started looking at that barn, which was built over a period of 20 years, when in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when California building codes were somewhat more casual. They said, well, why don't you just tear the place down and put up something new? Well, by doing a retrofit, you actually use far fewer natural resources, you have far fewer carbon emissions, and you employ a lot more skilled labor. So, and at the end of the day, you end up with a better building in many cases. So, I think it's the same thing with clean tech, which is another word for these environmental technologies. The Bay Area is a hotbed of clean tech startups. I mean, I'm personally working for a number of them, trying to help them visualize their ideas. They're hiring all kinds of engineers and people to market their products. We don't do a lot of manufacturing in the Bay Area any longer, but all of these ideas are conceived. The companies are formed here. The executive and sort of the marketing, the R&D infrastructure, all exists here in the Bay Area. And this, I personally believe that we're well on our way to this being the next, big thing in our economy. We're sort of living off the internet companies right now. But the future Yahoos and Googles are going to be, the Alta devices or the we already have SunPower here locally, who's a huge employer in the community. So I think it's a false choice between jobs and the environment. I think by focusing on clean tech and getting out in the lead on these issues, that we're going to ultimately end up supplying these technologies to other parts of the country and other parts of the world.
So it sounds like it could be really huge for not only our area, but also California as a whole. And what I'd like to talk about, we only have a couple minutes left, but I'd like to talk a little bit about what our residents can do. There are a lot of things that governments are doing, but what can our residents do?
So, not everybody can work in a solar, designing solar panels. But what you can do, let's go back a moment and talk about, how much electricity is used in buildings. 70% of the electricity in the United States, and that includes your home. And so, there's so many different programs out there. If you want to do it, it doesn't matter what your income level is, what your tax situation is, how much your home is worth. There's something that you can do. And I just encourage people to go on to the Department of Energy's website or just punch in tax credits for energy efficiency, anything like that. And what you'll find is there's generally about a 30% tax credit on your federal income tax for anything that you do related to energy efficiency. It doesn't have to be solar, but it can be. There's programs from your local utility that include rebates and giveaways at work. Ask your facilities manager, how much energy do we use around here, and have you ever tried to reduce that? Because just by asking that question, the answers are generally there. I guess you could point out as well that the company might save some money if they change. What I find in my consulting practice is that we generally can have paybacks from 6 months to 5 years. We don't even talk to people unless we can pay it off in 5 years.
Wow.
So that's a 20 to 150, say a 9-month payback is 150% rate of return. The nice thing about these improvements is you don't have to be a marketing whiz. You're already paying your energy bill. So if you can reduce that, or if your company can reduce that, you don't have to go out and find the customers for that. You are the customer.
Right.
So it's a great thing. And the other thing that people should remember is every dollar you save on your energy bill is an after-tax dollar. So, if you think about that for a moment, you'll realize that that's a very good place to spend your energy.
If you had to say the two top things that a resident could do to help their home and the environment, what would they be?
Well, I say keep an eye out for these solar hot water rebates that are going to be coming. That's a really relatively inexpensive way to use solar technology. And then energy efficiency. There's probably a free energy audit or subsidized energy audit offered by someone in your community. I know we're offering them to our residents through a program funded by the stimulus package. You know, your local utility has got them. So energy audits are generally the place to start.
So if someone just contacted their local electric company, they would
if you call in our area PG&E or Silicon Valley Power or Palo Alto Power and ask them about energy audits, if you punch in energy audits in Google, for example, or if you you know, keep an eye out for programs that your local government is subsidizing, because there's quite a few of them. And we've even got financing programs that are coming from the government side.
Great.
So just, you know, they're out there if you look a little bit.
If we want to find out more information about what you're doing, do you have a website that people can look?
I do have a website that talks a lot about these issues, www.visualizesolar.com, and you can also we also have information on you know, solar thermal there, or PV, or energy efficiency, which is sometimes called energy retrofits. Okay,
well, we'll check out your website. Thank you so much for being our guest today, and thank you for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500, or visit our website at www.sccdp.org. Help us make a difference, and we'll see you on the campaign trail.